Vincenzo's Gold Crypto Investing this February the 1st, 2025. Daily cryptocurrency and XRP and blockchain technology video that you guys have come to expect, love, need, and deserve. That has been, will continue to be, and has always been free to you, my beautiful, lovely, glowing audience members. And I do ask you, listen, yeah. J to like, subscribe, comment down below to support the channel. And if you would like to help further support the channel, yeah, you can become members of Jabroni Killer for an industry cheap and best value out there. Um, if we go into our memberships for only $3.99 a month. And then there is an option that there's one that's like $4.99. And you can be Gateman, MR0D, XRP Ripper Z, Peter Dubai, John Samson. We want to talk to Samson. Get you high as the moon. Old Samson, an XRP future millionaire that have been great members of Jabroni Killers. And a big perk of Jabroni Killers is I go straight to your comments and I will reply to you and I will talk about what you're asking me on the daily videos. And XRP Ripper said his game plan that I asked. When I look at all-time chart, DGB, and connect all-time highs with trend lines, specifically the high from 18 at 13 cents and from April of 21 at 18 cents. I arrive at a price of approximately 0.22 to 0.25 or 25 cents. Do you think I am being overly optimistic? No, going based on trend lines and past price to try to use it in an algorithm as a future price predictor, that's not a bad idea in an overall game plan. And I like that you have a game plan, you've done some research, and you following through on your game plan. And that's the big thing right there. Get a game plan, get educated, get information, and then follow through on your game plan. I like what I'm hearing from you here. I believe that since DGB does not have extremely high coin supply, this scenario could play out. And that's a great point right there, XRP Ripper. The lower the coin supply, the less buyers you need to pump and sustain a price at a higher level because there's less of them, right? So I do like that, and that's very good and a very valid point there. This scenario could play out. I would love to hear your opinion on this. And thank you from Switzerland, my man. I do like that. That's good information. We're going to keep this in the daily chart. And with the lower supply, it is much more plausible that these higher targets are more likely than a coin that has a lot more of them. Via the less coins, you need less buyers to push a price up and to sustain and keep a price at a higher level. And I do like the game plan, and I do see, and I do think that those are very realistic targets. Those aren't some outlandish targets. Those aren't pipe dreams. Those are very realistic, and that's a very distinct possibility over the next year or two, or maybe less than that, on a big rally, that those could actually happen. And you bought the coin at a very cheap price. So that would be a very good return for you. And I like your game plan. And no, it is not out of the question, and it is not a pipe dream. You got sound research, you got a sound game plan, and those are very, very realistic targets. And we're going to continue to monitor this, and I'll try to dig up some information on this too on some of these videos to bring that into the light too, and get more involved and get myself more updated and knowledgeable on DGB. I had somebody in here a few days ago ask me about Quant, we're going to go back over about the Trump tariffs and what I think that could do to the overall market, the coin world, and the financials. And I'll give you my opinions because these are only my own personal opinions, Jay. Um, what I think the tariffs do and how they work and what I think is going to happen with them. And we'll get into that after we do this video and some of the coins we'll look at first. And then I'm going to make a separate video here after for the altcoins, right? So these are just going to be the tariff news, the major coins that we cover, and then I'll do a nice rundown in a separate video on the altcoins. So that way you guys know altcoins are on this video and it seems to be working well and the audience seems to be liking it. It makes it easier for everybody to follow along with what's going on. And if we go into the full screen, we can see the XRP price did have a down day today, and it's starting to trend back down. And you do know, I know it's like a dead horse, that the targets that we're watching and the two possible patterns that could play out is a head and shoulders topping reversal pattern. And if we update the moving averages in the daily time frame, you can see we're sitting at about 262 on the 50. We're sitting at about 214 on the 100-day, and we're sitting at about $1.59 on the 200-day moving average in green there from top to bottom. And we could be in a head and shoulders topping reversal pattern with the left shoulder, a potential head forming here, especially if we start to come down to this neckline, which is sitting right at the 200-day moving average. Then we could have a nice pump on a right shoulder, and that could be a short-term topping out pattern where you would go from the top of the head to a potential neckline to the point of a breakout, and that gets you up there between about the 130 to $1.59, but I'm going to keep highlighting the $1.59 because I think there would be heavy buyers if you did come down and retest that. And you can see we're sitting below now that critical $3.01 major support and resistance level on the short term. And you can see we're coming back down, and we'll see if we come back down and form a double bottom right here. And if we do, can that be a catalyst to try to pump us back up? Or is this going to continue the bearish sentiment and the bearish action here, where it could drop us down to the 50-day moving average, excuse me, right here in the daily time frame? And if it does that, it would be the first time XRP's hit any of the moving averages since early December, just before the presidential election back in November of 24. And then if we do hit that, could that be the catalyst to come down to the 100-day moving average down here? And that would be hitting the neckline, and then maybe have a forceful pump up to form the right shoulder, right? So that's what we're looking at there on pattern number one. And right now, uh, it's looking like this might have some validity, something that we've been talking about for over 2 weeks now, as we've seen this pattern possibly developing. And if we go into the other possible pattern that we could be in, it could be what we have here, and we can extend these out farther now. Let's zoom in here. We can extend. Did I lock that? I did. We'll unlock that. We can extend these out farther, as this could also be the second pattern that we're looking at. And we're only doing candle bodies on the daily time frame because the wicks are just wicks. We'll relock that, and then we'll relock that. We could have a hidden, oops, we didn't want to clone that. We'll delete that. This could be a bull flag, right? Right there, your flag pulls right here on that big pump. There's your flag, and then the point of a breakout, and that's how you get up to $4.68. But if we come down to this 256, that would invalidate on a full confirmed breakout, not just a wick. Right here, we had a wick down out of there. I don't know why that always goes back to that. Right there, we had a wick down out of that, but it didn't close below it. If we get a daily close below that trend line, that would be a breakdown, and that would invalidate that pattern, and it would give more validity that this might be a head and shoulders topping out reversal pattern. But if we don't do that, you still have the 460, the $4.68 are in play. AMP, it continues to break down, and it's been a continued dagger in the heart of old Vincenzo. I still do believe eventually this will pump, but it's going to have patience, because right now in the daily time frame, the moving averages in AMP are starting to trend down, which is bearish. You can see that went down the 50-day to 0.000751. The 100-day is still running parallel at about 0.00698, and the 200-day is running parallel at 0.00625. So what we would like to see here is to get supported on the 200-day, form that double bottom, and then have a nice ferocious rally back to the upside, and maybe start to breach some of these lower lows, because we've been on a steady decline for the last, yes, we're going to have to continue to tell that we don't want to buy it, ever since we had that blow off top in early December 2024. So that's what we're watching out there in AMP. If we look at XLM, we know the thesis on the XLM is if you're below this 43 cents, which we've got rejected again after this quick wick back up right here in the daily time frame, and we'll isolate a little bit closer on that in the daily time frame or the hour time frame, you can see the 50-day moving average is running parallel at 40 cents. But as long as we're below that 43 cents, we're short to medium term bearish. The 100-day is sitting now parallel at 35 cents. The 200-day has ticked up ever so slightly, but it's going to, in the next day or two, start to run parallel too and start to constrict like a boa constrictor and tighten J. And we're paying attention to see if this does have a breakdown and we come and retest the 100-day moving average and then possibly the 200-day, which this would be a big buy zone for my beautiful audience. If we did come down to that 27 cents, that's a major, major buy zone there. And that would be something that I would be paying attention to for a very nice swing trade, as I think there would be a lot of buyers and a potential ferocious rally if you did come down to there. If you want to get back short to medium term bullish, you must get on top of this 43 cents and hold it, and then start to kick back to the upside to make a run at 80 cents, or at least the regional high, the local high of 63 cents there in XLM. And if we look at Bitcoin dominance, you can see the Bitcoin dominance did have a 2-day fall where the altcoins had a little bit of a rally. But today, Bitcoin dominance had a big rally and the altcoins fell across the board pretty hard, right? Because when Bitcoin dominance falls, money is coming out of Bitcoin and either going into cash, or usually it gets moved into the altcoins. But when Bitcoin dominance rallies, like it came right down to support at about the 58.61 dominance, and then it rallied straight back up to 59.70. And when you're rallying in Bitcoin dominance like it did this last 24 hours, the altcoins had a big fall. During this 24-hour span, the altcoins had a nice rally back to the upside. But in this most recent 24 hours, on this nice little rally here, the altcoins had a pretty big fall across the board because money was coming out of the altcoins and back in to um, Bitcoin. And now the tariffs, the news that everybody wants to know. What is old Vincenzo's thoughts on tariffs? Well, to me, tariffs are just like money printing, right? Not the same, but they have the same effect, right? When you print money and lower rates, what happens? Prices go up because you're increasing the money supply, but you're not increasing uh, the items that are in circulation. So you're not producing more things, but you're adding more money into the supply, which puts and forces prices up to offset that, or else you'll have product shortages. If you're going to increase the money supply and you don't want inflation to happen because of the cause, you don't want the effect of inflation, and the cause was the money printing. If you increase the money supply by 10%, you have to increase your products by 10% to offset that new money, or you have 25%, come here, kitty, or you have 25% more money chasing the same amount of goods. And the only way you can offset that, our prices do rise. Come here. Come here, kitty. Come on. Now, what I think of tariffs are kind of the same thing. Canada and Mexico slapped with 25% duties or tariffs. China 10% above current tariffs. Trump wants action on uh, of stopping the flow of fentanyl and migrants to the U.S. Canada oil will be taxed at 10%. More oil and gas tariffs expected in mid-February. U.S. President Donald Trump ordered 25% tariffs on Canadian and Mexican imports, 10% on goods from China starting on Tuesday, risking a new trade war. Economics could slow growth and reignite inflation, something I was just talking about. Trump signed the blah, blah, blah executive orders responding to concerns raised by oil refineries in Midwest states. Trump imposed only a 10% duty on energy products from Canada, with Mexico energy at 25%, a nearly 100 billion in 2023 imports of crude oil accounted for roughly a quarter of all U.S. imports from Canada, according to U.S. Census Bureau. Automakers would be particularly hit hard with new steep tariffs on vehicles built in Canada and Mexico, burdening a vast regional supply chain where parts can cross borders several times before final assembly. Now, the tariffs, a 25% tariff on Mexico or China or whatever their countries they put them on, the products that we would buy and import because the United States doesn't really build or manufacture any of our own goods. We are uh, stuck and need other countries' things like China because they build everything like our refrigerators, our clothes, our shoes, our microwaves, our electronics, and all this kind of stuff, TVs. Who's going to pay the 25% tariff? These countries that we're getting the products from aren't going to pay the cost. What are they going to do? They're going to pass the cost onto the consumer. The same thing as when governments regulate and hinder and put uh, strict regulation on businesses that cause businesses to increase uh, that that affect them by adding extra costs and making their goods that they sell more expensive. They don't eat the cost; they pass the cost on to the consumer. The same thing as when the federal government prints money or creates new money, that cost or the free money, because it's not free, gets passed on to us, the citizens, in the form of prices rising. This is going to make prices rise. If they have a 25% tariff to import cars to the US, the cars are going to cost 25% more from those countries that have tariffs on them because they're going to have to recoup the tariff. And another thing that it does is it causes financial wars between countries and then ultimately leads to wars between countries because you're putting tariffs on them and it's a tax. But who's going to pay the tax? Who pays taxes? The citizens of the country. So if you're putting a 25% tax, guess what? The products that we buy from these countries are going to cost 25% more, in my own personal opinion. I'm not a big fan of tariffs. If we wanted to use tariffs to try to get a country that builds TVs and get that company to bring production and manufacturing of the TVs back to the United States, that would be a good thing. But that would take a lot of money, a lot of retooling and building of manufacturing plants that we do not have anymore. And it would be very costly and it would take a very long time. So that would be a long-term thing. But in the short term, we're going to have prices rise. Tariffs are a tax, and the consumers, the buyers of the products, pay the tax. The businesses pass on that tax to their consumers, even though they don't want to. They have to. They're not going to eat it. They're going to pass it on to the consumers. And I think this is just one big extra tax, and it's going to negatively affect, I believe, the citizens. This isn't to say I don't like Trump or I like Trump. These are just my own personal opinions on taxes. I'm for reducing taxes. I'm for manufacturing and building things in this country. But unfortunately, over the last 75 years, we have exported all of our manufacturing to countries like China, to countries like India, and all over the world. We have exported the goods and we've exported the manufacturing. We assemble vehicles here. We don't even build them here anymore. If you look underneath any car that you buy, your axles are from Mexico, your drive shaft is from here, everything's from different countries, and they all get shipped here on sea cans, and assemble them here. Now, the oil thing, President Trump is right. We do have plenty of oil and natural resources in the United States that we could just drill more oil and we wouldn't necessarily have to buy any oil from Canada or Mexico if we didn't want to, or natural gas. We have plenty of that in this country if we just allow the country to drill, baby, drill, which he did the last time he was in office. And we were actually exporting oil because we were producing so much oil and energy in this country. We were making money off it. And when the last administration came in, they cut that back down and made it to where we couldn't drill and we couldn't produce our own energy. And we started buying, come here, from other countries. So those are my thoughts on tariffs. Look for an altcoin video to come out in about an hour. Peace and love.